This meeting is now called to order. I'd like to welcome everyone this evening. For roll call, Councillor Ham sends her regrets, and we'll now take a moment of reflection and respect, please. Thank you. Confirmation of the agenda?
This is moved by Councillor Chapman, seconded by Councillor Barber, that Council adopts the agenda for the special council meeting of October 5th, 2022 as amended by adding the following items. Attachment of additional comments to item 5.2.1, which is report planning 1322, and those comments were received from the Catfish Creek Conservation Authority. We're also adding item 7.1, which is report clerk 4522, respecting the Connecting Links Program 2023 to 24 Intake 8 application update, traffic signal modernization project application. And finally, we're proposing to add item 8.1.4, which is a bylaw to appoint municipal enforcement officers.
Okay, thank you, Josh. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried, thank you. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Okay. The next item up is delegations and public meetings, and the first item is Public Information Center. The Town of Aylmer is conducting a municipal class environmental assessment, Class EA, for the development of the AIM Industrial Park, including servicing with roads, sewers, water, or other required infrastructure. Consultation is an important part of this study. Today, R.J. Burnside and Associates, represented by Amy Body and Gord Feniak, are in attendance to facilitate the Information Center. The Public Information Center will proceed in the following order. Amy Body and Gord Feniak of R.J. Burnside and Associates will provide a presentation. Then there will be a follow-up and Q&A with council and staff, and then a follow-up Q&A with members of the public that are in attendance. Amy and Gord, I'd like to welcome you this evening, and can you please provide your presentation? I understand you have a video presentation this evening.
We do. Thank you for having us. I'll just ask, would you like us to play it from our end on our screen, or will you guys be pulling it up?
I'm not sure. I'll check with staff.
Yeah, we'll pull the video up. Thanks.
Okay, great. Well, I guess thank you, for having us. Gord and myself are happy to be here and go through the following presentation and hopefully answer all of your questions, or if not, get back to you with answers after this Public Information Center. Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for the online Public Information Center for the Industrial Manufacturing Park, Schedule B, Municipal Class EA. My name is Amy Body and I'm a project manager with R.J. Burnside. I am pleased to be assisting you through the 14 slides that form this presentation today on behalf of the study team and the Town of Aylmer. This presentation will provide very brief information on the Municipal Class EA study. We encourage you to review all of the available materials, which includes the full EA document on the town's website, and then to discuss your questions and ideas with the study team. Your input is very much appreciated and will be taken into consideration, so please fill out a sheet and return it to the study team in person or online by October 21st, 2022. The town is undertaking a Class EA study to consider the development of town-owned lands for industrial use. As you can see here on this slide in the red outlined area, we have our study area, which is approximately 26 hectares and is located in the northwest corner of town. The town has branded this project as AIM Park, Aylmer Industrial Manufacturing Park. As part of this study, the following site works could be anticipated. Construction of new roads, extending a sewage collection system, extending a water distribution system, and establishing a new stormwater retention or detention pond, which includes outfall to a receiving water body. These descriptions that you see above apply to Schedule B activities of the Municipal Class EA. The first step in an EA is to identify the problem to be solved by the study. Therefore, the problem or opportunity statement for this project is: to promote economic development, the town of Elmer would like to develop the Elmer Industrial Manufacturing Park and needs to provide extensions of roads and services, as well as providing stormwater management facilities in order to support the development in a sustainable manner. This slide shows the phases for a Schedule B project. We are currently in phase 2 of the process, which includes holding this consultation and also consulting with other agencies. Part of this phase has also been considering environmental and technical impacts on each alternative solution and identifying preliminary preferred solutions. Outlined in the full EA document online, you can find a wealth of information about the inventory of environments. This chart shows a very high-level overview of the natural, social, and economic environment considerations. I'm going to leave this chart up here on the screen so you can just take a quick look at some of the bullets that are listed. As mentioned, coming up with alternative solutions is part of this process. The 3 solutions in front of us are very simple. The first option is the town servicing the AIM Park with extensions of municipal services. This means extending the sanitary and water servicing and constructing a shared storm pond. The second option would be for the AIM Park to be developed with each user requiring their own private sewage system, private well, and private storm pond. And then option 3, do nothing. The formal evaluation for all 3 alternatives can be found in the EA document online. Our preferred solution is alternative 1. That would see the town of Elmer servicing the AIM Park with public roads, sanitary sewers, water system, and providing a shared municipal stormwater management facility. This slide and the next slide show some very high-level conceptual street layout options based on our preferred solution. So this one on the screen here shows us a connecting road coming south from White Street and then heading directly east connecting to Elm. The connection to the east on Elm would go through an easement between 2 existing industrial properties. You can also see on this drawing the rectangle in the bottom left corner. That is a potential location for a stormwater management facility, as that's sort of the lowest lying area of the land. And down in the right hand corner you can see a circle which is outlining the water tower location. And then this slide shows a second option where again we come down south from White Street, head east, and then it jogs north and then east through an existing easement which contains the Skinner Municipal Drain. Again, these are just conceptual layouts that we will be exploring further in the process. Supporting studies have been completed. Detailed reports and studies are all included in the EA document. A topographic survey and geotechnical investigation were completed in the spring. Aquatic assessments were completed over several field visits and found generally no management concerns. A terrestrial survey was also completed over various site visits. Overall, the majority of those ecological communities present within the study area are commonly occurring in low sensitivity features. And lastly, an archaeological study was conducted and no further archaeological methods were employed since no artifacts were recovered during the pedestrian survey. The EA process is ongoing. We are looking forward to receiving any comments from agencies, stakeholders, and members of the public. Please provide any comments you may have by completing the online comment sheet and sending them to myself or Josh Brick before October 21st. We will review all the comments, reevaluate, select preferred alternatives, and continue on with the process. On this slide, we've brought up some contact information for both Josh Brick and myself. Please reach out, fill out the comment form, and on behalf of the town of Elmer and Burnside, we would like to thank you for viewing the engagement materials and participating in this Public Information Center. We look forward to receiving your input.
Thank you, Amy, for the presentation. I'm just going to open it up to council. Do you have any questions at all for Amy or for any of our staff? Councillor Barber, go ahead.
Thank you. Just a curiosity question. Schedule B assessment. I think that was referred to. How is that compared to Schedule A or something else? What makes it a B?
Thank you. It's we didn't get into a lot of detail about the Class A because you're familiar with it through the water tower project. But just as an overview, the Environmental Assessment Act says that any undertaking by the Crown or on behalf of the Crown requires an environmental assessment, which means anytime a municipality puts in a driveway culvert, it needs an environmental assessment or it needs to comply. So the municipal class environmental assessment classifies a number of like projects, and there are generally three schedules: A, B, and C. There's also A plus, but it's different severities of projects that require more in-depth review. So these being Schedule B are right in the middle. Schedule A are completely benign. That would be like the example I gave of putting in a driveway culvert, and they're simply already approved. A plus is already approved, but you have to notify the public. At the other end of the spectrum, Schedule C might be a brand new sewage treatment plant or a brand new water distribution system, or a road that's much more expensive, like an arterial road going through farmland. Those would be Schedule C activities that would be much more detailed in review. So Schedule B just fits into the middle, and everything we anticipate in the AIM Park fits into that Schedule B category.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any further questions or comments? Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Your Worship. What would be the deciding factor between the roadway going south of White Street, east on whatever, and then far north again to the second, I'll call it roadway, or to the first one? What would make a difference on which roadway you chose, or we would choose?
Amy, feel free to answer if you like. I don't want to monopolize this. There's no one deciding factor. Personally, I like the south better. In each case, a road that we come up with is not going to perfectly align with the driveway across the street. And having a bit of a staggered intersection is undesirable. I think the south is the most manageable that way. And it also, I think, gives better circulation. It's just a clearer route to drive in and drive out without, getting lost. And it's also a little nicer for the sanitary sewer, because we'd like the sanitary sewer to follow the road. So taking it back north again means we're kind of running uphill and then back downhill again. So those would be three factors that would favor the south, but we're not there yet. We're still looking for input, and there are other factors, and we quite simply would like other people's input to see if there's other things there.
And I'll just add to that, one of those factors is also looking at the Skinner drain. So we talk about that a little bit in the report so far, but that's a big thing to look into, is whether there's opportunity to divert that, or we would have to change sort of the way that open channel works through that existing easement. So like Gord said, there's lots of things that we have to look at.
Thank you.
Councillor Oslach?
Yes, Your Worship. You put the water tower in the southeast corner. Why did you put it there?
We put it there because that's where you thought you want. That's where the location wasn't determined by us, but that was our understanding of the location that was chosen by other consultants working for the town, specifically for the water tower.
Josh, go ahead.
Yeah, through your worship and to Councillor Oslach, just to echo what Gord said, we sort of did two separate EAs on this site with independent engineers. So the process for the water tower and that site selection was done working with CJDL. So we obviously both of the engineering consultants have been working very closely just to to avoid reinventing the wheel on this
Mhm.
file, but that site selection was independent of Burnside.
When we had a tour of the industrial site, Rob said it would be at the end of the road, going into the,
Sorry, I might not be understanding what you're asking, Councillor Ock.
well, it's going into the road, going in from Elm Street into the industrial park. He indicated that it would be in that area at the time.
Through you, Mayor French, yeah, so not related to this EA, but the water tower EA that's already been completed, and I believe is under review with the ministry now. Yeah, there was multiple locations looked at, and you're correct, both of the two locations were looked at. The one that we brought before council and had endorsed was the one on the lower section, and it had to do with really that up top at that one location was a much smaller pipe, would have required a lot more distance to get the main secondary line up there, whereas this one is very close to the main secondary line. So it will potentially be a better location for the water tower, but that was another kind of process, not this one.
Thank you, Andy.
Are there any further questions or comments? I just have one comment. I noticed with all the studies that were done, and there were several, it seems to me that we lucked out when we purchased this piece of property, because there didn't seem to be a lot of work that needed to be done as far as studies. And to me, that would be saving time and money. So I'm thinking that I'm on the right track with that.
I would say it was more than luck.
Is
I
it
think
because we're such a smart council?
I think so. I think you did a good job of purchasing this land. It's always made good sense. And our point in writing this EA was, it's just logic is prevailing, and let's not overthink this. It all just makes good sense, and it's zoned. It's clearly an industrial park that's been approved, and just putting the servicing in, it's all been kind of pre-thought, and it works well. So yeah, kudos to the town. It was a good decision.
Thank you, Gord. Are there any further questions or comments from council? Okay, the next item up is for the public, but I don't see any members of the public present this evening. So we'll follow up. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, I'd like to thank Gord and Amy for joining us this evening, and I'll ask Josh to read the resolution.
This is moved by Councillor Oslich and seconded by Councillor Chapman, that council receives the Public Information Center presentation from RJ Burnside and Associates respecting the Industrial Park Municipal Class Environmental Study for information.
Okay, any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Have a great evening, Amy and Gord.
Thank
Thank you very much, and you. Bye.
The next item up is a public participation meeting. And I'll have you read the resolution, please, Josh, for public hearing.
This is moved by Councillor Chapman and seconded by Councillor Charlton, that council do now commence a public meeting at 7:18 p.m. to receive input from the public with respect to the report authored by the Manager of Planning and Development, and that is Report Plan 1322, Planning Evaluation Report, Red Line Revision for Phase 3 for Draft Plan of Subdivision 34T 98001, and application for zoning bylaw amendment, and that's file number ZBA 0322, part of lots 85 and 86, concession and part of block west registered plan 164, Town of Elmer, and this is brought by Sifton Properties and MHBC Planning.
Okay, are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. This public meeting is taking place under the Planning Act 1990 as amended. At this virtual public meeting, council will hear public representations regarding Manager of Planning and Development Report Plan 1322, Red Line Revision for Phase 3 for Draft Plan of Cottonwood Subdivision, and application for zoning bylaw amendment 03-22 from Sifton Properties Limited. Please note that those who do not provide comment or written submission prior to the decision of the appropriate authority may not be afforded the right to appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal. Council will hear comments in the following order. The Manager of Planning and Development, who will be presenting the staff report, the applicant or agent, members of the public, staff follow-up and Q&A. And welcome, Heather. Can you please provide the report for us this evening?
Thank you, Your Worship. The report that's before you this evening is for a red line revision to a draft plan of subdivision as well as a application for zoning bylaw amendment. The red line revision to the draft plan of subdivision is essentially to kind of change the lot fabric within the blocks for Phase 3 for Cottonwood, as well as to allow for the extension and realignment of Cottonwood Boulevard. Within this Phase 3 of the plan of subdivision, the developer is proposing 42 residential lots with 4.3-meter reserve blocks and the extension of Cottonwood Boulevard. There would be no net loss in residential lots as a result of this red line revision. It's important to note that given that this red line revision is minor, there is no statutory public meeting for the red line revision. However, a public meeting is required for the zoning bylaw amendment application. Purpose and effect of the zoning bylaw amendment is simply to implement the red line revision by rezoning the land subject to the red line revision, rezoning them from residential holding to residential type 1 special provision 8 to permit low density residential use with special use regulations. Balance of the property will remain under the current zoning that the property that's applying to it. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment is required as the current zone does not permit new residential uses. Figure 1 in my report kind of just shows you the overall area of the subject lands. Figure 2 within my report shows the lands subject to the red line revision. And again, those are the lands identified and outlined in red. So as you can kind of see, the original plan fabric kind of showed the subdivision kind of in a more kind of rectangular type of fashion. This red line revision is just to kind of alter and shift those lines slightly, as well as to allow for the shifting of Cottonwood Boulevard. And it's my understanding, again, all of these lots with Phase 2 as well as Phase 3 have had to be realigned with the roads as a result of the creek and the creek bank and areas that can be developed. Figure 3 shows the land subject to the zoning bylaw amendment. Moving on to planning policy analysis, I reviewed the provincial policy statement and I can conclude that the proposed red line revision to the draft plan of subdivision and zoning bylaw amendment are consistent with the provincial policy statement. Next, the County of Elgin official plan. I've reviewed the applicable policies and I can conclude that the proposed red line revision to the draft plan of subdivision and zoning bylaw amendment conformed to the county's official plan. Next, the Town of Aylmer official plan. I reviewed the applicable policies that apply, and I can conclude that the proposed red line revision to the draft plan of subdivision and zoning bylaw amendment conform to the town's official plan. Moving on to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, as I mentioned, this is a rezoning from RH, which is residential holding, to a residential type 1 special provision 8. The special use regulations that are being proposed are an increase in lot coverage from 35% to 40%, increase in height, and this is maximum height from 8.5 meters to 10.5 meters. And it's important to note that height is taken from the midline, is measured from the midline of the roof. The third special use regulation is a decrease in front yard depth, minimum from 7 meters to 6 meters to the main building. And lastly, a decrease in exterior side yard setback as a minimum from 7 meters to 4.5 meters to the main building. The requests for the special use regulations for Phase 3 are currently in effect in a portion of the Phase 2 residential development. I do want to comment, however, that I would like to comment that the proposed special use regulations are appropriate for this development and that it will have minimal impact on the function and on the use of the lots and on stormwater management, as this has been accounted. As I mentioned, the balance of the lands will currently remain as they're currently zoned, which is residential holding, heavy industrial, and environmental protection. I do want to note that heavy industrial zone is in the north section of the balance of these lands, and those are the lands that border along the railway corridor. And if you're familiar with that area of the property at the north end, along this north property line where the railway corridor is, directly north of that is where we have the industrial park, and in particular the ethanol plant. Therefore, the proposed zoning bylaw amendment will be in compliance with the zoning bylaw, subject to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment being implemented. In terms of reviewing our strategic priorities, I've identified those within my report. There are no financial impacts, and therefore it's the Planning Department's recommendation that the proposed red line revision to the draft plan of subdivision and zoning bylaw amendment are consistent with the provincial policy statement, and they conform to the County of Elgin official plan and the Town of Aylmer official plan, and recommend that the request for the red line revision to the draft plan of subdivision be recommended for approval, and the zoning bylaw amendment be approved, subject to no concerns being raised through any oral and written comments being received since the writing of this report and at the public meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Is the applicant or agent in attendance, and if so, would you like to make any comments?
Good evening. Yes, Dave Aston here this evening as the applicant from MHBC Planning, and just a few comments, if I may.
Certainly, welcome, and go ahead with your comments.
Thank you very much. I do have with me this evening a planner from our office, Aaliyah Clark, and representative from Sifton, Alexandra Hassan. So the two other people on the screen there. First of all, just want to thank Heather for her report, very detailed, and she's been very helpful in working with us to propose a zoning bylaw amendment and the red line modification. What's being proposed really is the next phase for Sifton. They've been very successful in moving to the development of the property after kind of a restart a year or so ago with the first red line modification and change to the zoning bylaw. So what's being proposed here really just reflects the previous considerations associated with the zoning bylaw, and as mentioned by Heather, reflects changes that were made in phase 2 to the road pattern and to implement those changes for phase 3. I had a presentation, but I think Heather did a great job in working through what was being proposed and the planning rationale and support of the modification and the zoning bylaw amendment. And really just here in support of the recommendations. I know there was an additional piece of correspondence from the Conservation Authority that I believe removes one of the conditions or comments associated with this phase for the requirement for the geotechnical report, as that will be required in a future phase. So we would ask that that be considered as part of your consideration of the recommendation. But here to support the recommendation and happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much for your comments. There are no members of the public in attendance, but Josh, have you received any correspondence or any further information?
Through you, we've not received any correspondence from members of the public. However, we did receive correspondence from the Catfish Creek Conservation Authority yesterday afternoon, and I'll just read it off here. So they just said, "Hello, Heather. Further to our phone conversation and seeing the updated Phase 3 plan, the Catfish Creek Conservation Authority has no concerns or additional requirements with the new proposed Phase 3 of Cottonwood."
Okay, thank you, Josh. I'll turn it over to council. Do you have any questions or concerns? Okay. Seeing no questions or concerns, I guess we'll call the vote then. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Now, Josh, could you read the resolution, please?
Certainly. This is moved by Councillor Barber and seconded by Councillor Oslich, that council do now close this public meeting at 7:30 PM.
Okay, all those in favor? And that's carried. And the next resolution, please, Josh?
This is moved by Councillor Oslich and seconded by Councillor Charlton, that council of the town of Elmer receives the report Plan 1322 regarding planning evaluation report, red line revision for draft plan of subdivision and application for zoning bylaw amendment, file number ZBA 0322, and that's part of lots 85 and 86. That's part of Block West Registered Plan 164, Town of Elmer. And further, that council of the town of Elmer recommend approval to the approval authority of the county of Elgin for a red line revision to draft plan of subdivision 34T 98001. And further, that council of the town of Elmer approves the proposed zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 0322 in accordance with the bylaw 3322 and considers providing 3 readings to that bylaw 3322.
Okay, thank you, Josh. Are there any questions or comments? Heather?
Your worship, if I may, just request for the clerk to make a small correction in the
Certainly.
resolution. That's my error, my apologies, your worship. In the first part of the recommendation, when it references that council of the town of Elmer received the report regarding planning evaluation report, red line revision for draft plan of subdivision, I would like to add the file number, please, which is 34T-98001.
We can just, that can be a friendly amendment.
Yes, so, who,
That's Councillor Oslich and Councillor Charlton.
okay, is that okay with you, Counselor Oslach and Counselor Charlton? It's just a bit of a change? Does anyone require this to be read again? We okay? All right, so we're ready for the vote? Okay, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And thank you, Dave, very much for attending, and have a great evening.
Great, thank you so much.
Okay. I guess the next item up is adoption of council and committee minutes to approve.
This is moved by Councillor Chapman and seconded by Councillor Barber, that council approves the following minutes. Regular virtual meeting of council held on September 21st, 2022.
Okay, are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Next, we'll move into action items, and the report is Clerk 45-22.
This is moved by Councillor Chapman and seconded by Councillor Oslich, that report Clerk 4522 entitled Connecting Links Program 2023-24 Intake 8 Application Update, and that's respecting the traffic signal modernization project application, be received for information, and that council endorses the Talbot Street and John Street traffic signal project and estimated project costs as outlined in the report Operations 1322, and further that council directs staff to make application to the Connecting Links Program 2023-24 Intake 8 for the Talbot Street and John Street traffic signal modernization project.
Okay, Josh, do you have any further information to share with council?
Certainly, I'll keep it really brief.
Okay.
Council's very familiar with this project. We spoke about it on September the 21st. So again, this sort of started with a notice of motion that came from council. Staff engaged a consultant to do a review of the intersection, which Rob summarized on the 21st in his report Operations 1322. Staff routinely review available grant requests, and we were very happy to see that the Ministry of Transportation Connecting Links program has opened a new stream, and staff are of the opinion that this is a really competitive project for this. So some of the benefits of the program is that the maximum provincial funding contribution is up to 90% of the net eligible costs. So for this project, we wouldn't be able to recover consulting fees that have been done. But that said, we're forecasting that the project, which is likely to cost somewhere around $70,000, would be eligible for up to 90% of the funding if we're successful. So the reason that we brought this report to council this evening is just because the deadline for applications is on November the 16th, 2022 at 1 p.m. So staff would like to get started on the application if council's in favor, and we do require a resolution from council endorsing the project before we can make application. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions council might have.
Are there any questions for Josh? Counselor Oslach, go ahead.
Yes, Your Worship. Just one comment. This is a long time coming, a long time coming. Yeah.
Any further comments or questions? All I can say is it's good news. If this goes through, it'll be perfect. With no further questions or comments, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. The next item up is reading of bylaws and proceedings thereon, and that'd be 3 readings.
This is moved by Councillor Barber and seconded by Councillor Oslich, that council gives 3 readings to the following bylaws. Bylaw 3322, being a bylaw to amend the bylaw 5799, being the zoning bylaw of the town of Elmer, and that's respecting the Cottonwood subdivision. Bylaw 3422, being a bylaw to appoint a community emergency management coordinator. Bylaw 3522, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at this special council meeting held on October 5th, 2022. And finally, bylaw 3622, being a bylaw to appoint municipal enforcement officers.
Okay, are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. And our last resolution, please, Josh.
This is moved by Councillor Charlton, seconded by Councillor Barber, that council do now adjourn at 7:36 p.m.
Okay, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much.
Exactly right, Josh. He told me this morning it would be done at 7:30.